Attendees. Start the meeting. It's waiting for me. Megan should be jumped on here in a minute.
Oh, I bet you're gonna have a lot of people on Zoom, huh?
Well,
Recording in progress. In progress.
actually.
Hey, can you hear me? You want me to try again?
Yes, I hear you. Can you hear us?
Yeah, Gamora says hi.
Oh my God.
Can you see us?
Can you hear us, Peggy?
Yeah, I can hear you.
I'm turning off the mics in case somebody gets saucy.
Do we want this on Facebook?
Hey Megan, I sent you Jeremy's PowerPoint. If you can run it for us during the meeting.
Okay.
Reset the battery. Megan, can you hear us okay?
Yes,
Going once?
I can.
All right, we're live.
Okay, hey, I would like to thank everybody for giving of their time. Collectively, there has been a lot of talent and probably hundreds upon hundreds of hours working on this to bring us close. And Lord knows, I think we've just gone miles and we are very, very close. And welcome to City Hall here in Idaho Springs. It's very laid back. Feel free, put your feet up, get up and stretch if you'd like. The coffee maker's warmed up. There's coffee and hot chocolate. Make yourself at home. You couldn't ask for a more laid back environment. And again, welcome everyone. I know this is technically also meeting of county commissioners. So with that, I would like to turn this over to George Morrow.
Yeah, thank you. We're posted as this being a meeting of the Board of County Commissioners, which means there's one thing that we have to do before I hand it back to Chuck for what we're here to do. So this is a meeting of the Board of County Commissioners. It's a special meeting at a special location here in Idaho Springs City Hall. It's May 22nd, roughly 6 p.m. First thing on the agenda is public comment. Anybody here for public comment? Hearing none, public comment is closed. The only and last thing on the agenda is the annual meeting of the IGA partners that create the Clear Creek Fire Authority. This is the first time we're doing it. This is an annual report from the Fire Authority. Really looking forward to hearing from Fire Authority staff and discussing. Certainly been a lot of progress in the last year. And with that, Chuck, I think it's going back to you.
Well, thank you. And we're very grateful to Fire Authority staff for your work on this. And very much like to hear your input on it. And I'm not sure if Kelly or Jeremy, you'd like to kick this off, but.
I'll start off.
Okay, thanks, Kelly.
What you have in front of you is the report with the items that are required in the IGA. So it starts with just a very brief description of the requirements, which are the response statistics, goals and objectives, grant activity, the current capital plan, current capital assets list, and the prior year financial audit, which is in the very back. So you have a table of attachments. The first four are also in, the first 5 sheets are in a separate presentation that we put together for this evening. They will go over on PowerPoint. So I'm going to skip over those in this report. So it's the 2024 response times. And then there's goal sheet and a priority sheet. What you then end up with is a grant activity sheet, and we did a summary of what's been occurring since 2021. I didn't put a total number to those. So you can see there that we've been pretty active with grant requests. Not always successful. The majority are. Most of the grant money goes to rescue equipment rather than firefighting equipment. That's hard to get grant money for. There is in 2020, 2022, we did get money directly from the state for personal protective equipment, so bunker gear and some breathing apparatus. The rest of it is pretty low dollar amount stuff. You'll see at the bottom, City of Westminster and Clear Creek Watershed. These are not really grants, but money that was agreed upon to give to us for mitigation This is money that Jeremy secured through the watershed group that he sits on. So they see the value of fire mitigation to their water supply.
Mm.
So we got some money from them. Jeremy is much more familiar with the details of everything in there than I am, because he's going to do all of the work on those. If you have any questions.
Jeremy, thank you. How, I just have to ask, how were you able to secure this? I mean, technically from the city of Westminster.
Honestly, that individual threw my name out in 2021.
All right.
On the water, the Clear Creek Watershed Fourth Health Partnership when it was in its development phase. And I went, okay, that sounds interesting. And so I was vice chair of that organization for 2 years. And I'm currently chair. And the nice thing about that is I've got a direct interface with the water administrators for all our downstream water users. So through side conversations, what started out is we've got some money now, usually is, I have money I have to spend on the budget this year for mitigation, so it can pay for equipment, what do you got? So some of these were those kind of, they pay for wildland radios. For example, the city of Westminster, $10,000 was for radios.
Uh-huh.
13,500 was for a chipper. So, and then Arvada's not in here, but they've given, we've got 5,000 from them, we've gotten 15 from Arvada.
All right.
It's the same thing. So we've those relationships of, here's the projects we're working on, and when they have money that they can spend directly for that, it's usually a side conversation. This is what I have, what do you have that fits the bill? And then we invoice and we make it work and we put the work on the ground. So it's been a fun relationship. And I think we've all kind of learned together collectively on how we use it.
That's wonderful. Yeah, thank you.
If I may just add, I think this is the tip of the iceberg in terms of, if you're on a board of a metro city in the Clear Creek watershed, and you are, that we serve water users all the way down to the east end of Westminster. And, you should be wanting to invest up here. You should not feel confident that the taxes of 9,500 people are what's responsible for protecting your water supply. So Jeremy, I really appreciate making the inroads there, and there's so much more to accomplish. So thanks for being down there, working on that.
Yeah, I'm surprised like Golden wouldn't be on this, like.
They are. So what Golden did is we got money from Golden the first year, and then the second year, in order to get a forester position higher, Golden invested that money directly back into the organization with the goal of getting a forester, which that happened last year. And then there's a director as of this year and also some federal grants. So that money was redirected, which made sense. Carrie Major was the chair, and she was the water management for Golden. So that was one of the things that we worked on, was where is the money best spent? And as greedy as I want to be, oh, we'll take it all. It made a lot more sense to put that money towards developing those positions. So now we have assets. So we've got forester with the watershed that I can call her today, whose office is in Gilbert County, and say, let's go walk a project. So we're getting the benefit out of that money through those positions.
That sounds great.
Down at the bottom, there's one for International Association of Fire Chiefs, CWPP. That was a grant that was awarded to us for planning and building the county wildfire protection plan that Jeremy put together. That's pretty close to
You guys will
presentation.
see work sessions version of that in June, hopefully for approval in July.
That was huge. They came in and did an exercise with us. And it was towards the end of the project, which was very valuable. I think some of you were in here were there.
Were you able to educate them on the complexity of it all?
I think, it showed some people some things that they don't consider. For sure, and we need to do another one similar because it really shows that, you know, at some point, you may not be able to do much other than get out of the way. And that's just part of the reality of living here in the forest or by the forest. And then just this week, for this year, it was just announced that the FEMA grant for the safer grant for gives you money for staff. And that got reopened. It'll be open tomorrow for applications. We thought that that was history with the FEMA grants. And then there's another one that is a sister to it, which are in the blue. And those are bigger money. We stand, if we have a good application, we should be able to get staff funding. Not complete staff funding. We're gonna look at how much we're gonna be able to ask for, and that goes for 3 to 5 years. The next sheet is a light vehicle capital plan. And that shows mostly our staff vehicles. Hopeful replacement dates. This plan is on hold because we are currently spending our capital reserve. Next one is a heavy vehicle plan. And that addresses our ladder trucks, heavy rescue truck, 2 tankers, and 9 engines that we purchased in 2013. You'll see on there that it's a much higher dollar cost. And one of these will be one of these international 4x4 engines we will be selling to offset the cost of the new engine that we just purchased, used for putting here in the station here in Idaho.
I just wanted to compliment the deal. Basically got practically new engine for half price, and I just want to applaud how frugal you have been. I was not aware of it until I read about it in the paper, and it was a great story.
I know Chris, shout out for that.
Yeah.
He's like, call me when you have new stuff going on. So we talk probably every 2 weeks on stuff, and he just shows up. Sounds great. Let's do the story. Okay, let's do the story.
Yeah.
So he's done some really good stuff for us.
We should be able to sell one of our engines for pretty close to the same money that we purchased that truck.
That's amazing.
And then get a clear sale if we do it. All of these vehicles you see here are paid for. We have no debt. We've been debt free for actually going back into about 2008. We did lease purchases on the 2 ladder trucks and the engines, the 9 engines. We bought 9 identical engines all at the same time. And those were all done with a lease purchase that we paid off with it. So fortunately, we're debt free, so that doesn't compound our revenue issue. The next sheet is a facility capital plan. Big money items that we can't justify within our repair line item in the budget. The biggest one in here is in the middle of the page. We were hoping, we've been trying to build a new station in Idaho Springs for many years. It took us about almost 3 years to get the parking lot property from CDOT across country. Carlson Street. Now, I'm not able to build on it, but we were projecting, when we first started, we were projecting to spend about $2 million on the building. Right now, we're looking at probably close to 16.
16?
Wow.
For the same building, yeah.
And how long, what was that period of time?
Oh, I want to say we've been talking about it for a good 15.
So 15 years.
It's, we weren't really working directly towards that until like 2019. The cost of building is just
It is crazy.
skyrocketing. The rest of the stuff in there is, kind of maintenance stuff. Bottom wish list there to replace asphalt of our main building in Dumont. Put a second floor addition on our burn building we use quite regularly. If you go back and forth down the corridor, you'll see us out there on Fridays. That's our, and there's a large group out there, that's our Red Rocks Community College Academy that we are providing. And we get quite a good flow of shift volunteers out of that program. Kids that want to get some experience. Several of them have become paid staff on the first summer group. Furnaces are huge, those are at the top, those are big money items now. And those, we need to keep pressing to get those, especially Station 4 and Station 2. Any questions on capital stuff?
I did have a question. Yeah, there's been a real push to eliminate natural gas. And we just recently went through this with the police station that basically we're building out of the bank building here across the street. And I'm just wondering, are these prices for electrically powered furnaces?
No, these would be.
They are still
When they
natural
were
gas?
priced and put in here, it was for gas units.
I got you. Okay.
We are looking at potentially using heat exchangers rather than furnaces, which will more eliminate the gas function, but it would increase the efficiency considerably.
This is where we need to belong to the Dr. Cog thing, and we could get their buildings with the emissions that we were talking about last time.
Decarbonization.
Yeah, and I don't want to hold us up, but I would just say that we petitioned to have the requirement that we meet the LEED Green Globe standard. It was going to cost us about an extra $250,000 on the police station, and we were successful in getting that relief. It was $1 million grant, and about a third of that was going to go to the increased cost of the electrification of the heat system. So we are going to have a standard gas system. And we already, Kelly, as you were just alluding to, we were running into some significant cost overruns with that building. And this kept us more with what council had approved budget wise. So
Yeah.
I'm again, I don't want to get on that tangent, but I'm just sharing that there's an example of it. It really did spike the cost of our construction.
Right, and when we decided we were gonna have to remodel this fire station instead of building a new one, the city had been planning and hoping to remodel the fire station for the police station. And some goofy fire chief said that they should buy the bank building and we could put offices in there within a couple of weeks, and look what happened.
What happened?
It just, the cost of doing it and the code requirements to bring it up to current code.
It's just really common now, like $800 a square foot for a remodel of an existing building. I mean, it's just, by the way, they're running into that with the early childhood care over at Carlson. I think they're about 800 plus, maybe $900 a square foot on an existing building. It's, you can't make this up.
Those aren't ancient or
No,
historic buildings either.
One more thing on capital, the station 1, 2, and 4, just about the middle of the page, a diesel exhaust removal system. We partnered with the EMS to put a removal system in Station 4 in Georgetown. They house their upstairs 24/7 for the ambulance crew. They've been there for, went back into the, since they started getting paid. They volunteer administration, but we've had an ambulance there for a good 25 years. But at any rate, we put a diesel exhaust removal system in there that was suggested in the mission CIT study. So we're trying to accomplish some of those goals, and it's gonna take a while. That's big stuff on capital. It's, you know, we're not gonna spend out our capital line in the budget this year, and I'm not going to put any capital into the budget next year as far as I know so far.
So I'm assuming these dates, like this one has a 2024, that did not happen.
No,
And so all these dates were kind of fluid.
yeah, it's a dynamic document. They're gonna have to be changed. But really not gonna be able to change them until we know we have a reliable revenue source. And I'll talk more about that later on. The next list is the assets, the current assets that we have. This list gets pared down every year with the depreciation that the auditor does. But this shows the majority of the really big items. And it shows the purchase date. So you see on there at the top that Ford F-550 engine at $280,555. That was that used truck that we purchased. And then as you go down through here, you'll see like the wood chipper that we got. A couple of the staff vehicles, Lucas CPR machine that we bought in 2020 that has been instrumental in our cardiac saves over the last 4 years. An SCBA trailer for $117,000. We purchased a trailer that compresses air for our breathing apparatus, so we can have that capability on a fire scene rather than shuttling bottles back and forth to what was best source was at the station in Georgetown. In the middle there, you'll see our burn building. We paid $479,000 total cost on that. We had a DOLA grant on that. Down further, Station 3, $559,000. That station today would probably be $3 to $4 million. It's a very small station. It's got an apartment in it, but one of our volunteers is housed there. More trucks. On the back side of that, you'll find the when we built the purchase of those 9 tankers and 20 engines in 2013. Total purchase price of $2.9 million. And we were able to do that with a lease purchase. We got them all at the same time. Interest back then was right around 5% on those trucks, which was pretty amazing. We wouldn't get that nowadays. In the middle of the page, we built fire station in St. Mary's. For $683,000, that building would probably be closer to 10 to 12 million today. Near that, we purchased our current main building in Dumont in 2009 from Excel. We got that for $765,000.
What a steal.
Below that, our ladder truck in Georgetown. 105-foot aerial. $661,000. That truck today would be close to $2 million. Station 6 on Floyd Hill. $887,000. We have 3 housing, I'll call them units in there where we can house volunteers. And we currently have 1 person there. Next down, the 75-foot aerial truck that's here in Idaho Springs at $521,000. Those trucks, if we were able to order those, any of the engines or the ladder trucks, there's a lead time right now of about 4 years. That's the quick rundown of our capital assets. Those are all assets that are owned by the fire authority rather than any of the municipalities. The assets of the municipalities are essentially right now the real property, the real estate. And those are listed in the IGA without a value.
I have a question. Do we still own the building on the north side on Floyd Hill? North side of the highway?
We do. It's a fire authority building.
And then we have the south side as well.
The one on the south side is Evergreens.
Okay.
Yeah, the district line for the 2 districts is Highway 40. They have south Highway 40 and we have.
Okay.
Big one in here is the audit of the 2023 financial stuff here. This is good reading for a cold rainy night with a hot cup of tea. There's nothing, we have not had anything significant come up in any of our audits for the history of the organization. Everything has always been within I don't know what the best word for it is, but an accounting word for it.
Like generally accepted accounting principles?
That's a good one. So we always get a very good audit report result. We're just now starting on the 2024 financials audit. It'll be due to the state July 5th. That's a quick rundown of what is required in an annual report for the IGA specifically. Any questions? All was pretty clear.
That's impressive. Meaning, we have so many assets, but if we suddenly needed to replace a bunch of them, the cost has gone up so much.
Yeah, and historically, we've been able to keep our big vehicles for 20+ years. So those 9 engines should theoretically last us in the 33 ladders until they're due. And, but they're essentially brand new. If you were able to look at one of them.
They look pretty.
And they, they don't get used that often, so they last longer. The stuff that we had prior that we were running for 20 years, the 2 main trucks, they saw a lot of use because they were our main trucks for the corridor. One in Georgetown and one in Idaho Springs, so it's a different situation for what we have now. And with the engines, we're able to rotate them and keep the mileage kind of close to even on them, but not real high on any of them. So yes, replacing any of them will be difficult.
I just wanted to bring this up because we may have some people in the room that were not aware. I think in the mission CIT report, like the industry encourages departments to replace anything that's 10 years old or older. In the very frugal department, I notice some of these replacement dates, some of this equipment be 30 years old. And I know you have some that they're really up there right now. And I'm just saying, I think that we have an environment, this isn't the swamps of Louisiana or something, and that I think that the department's made quite an effort to keep things up to par. And because of that and the frugal spending, I for one am impressed that we're able to keep the capital improvements as low as we have and get as many years out of the equipment as we have. But I just wanted to bring up that the industry suggests 10 years and we easily go double that.
Part of that industry, which I would say the majority of it is metro based. Metro departments are putting thousands of miles on the truck monthly. And we have some trucks that we don't put 1,000 miles on in a year. And the one thing that could be a spoiler here is the de-icer that CDOT has been very aggressive with over the past few years. That it eats away at the trucks. We didn't have that problem with those other trucks that we replaced. They were essentially rust free. We did rust a water tank out on one, but that's because it had water in it. For 10 years.
Back east, they used a lot of salt and cars would rust out. And here, when we first moved here, like really impressed how nice our cars were staying.
Yeah.
Now the mag chloride has been used.
They will paint the highway on a nice sunny day during the winter for no reason whatsoever. And they do it on a regular basis. So if they want to cut costs for CDOT, that would be a good place to go. I would imagine the per lane mile cost of that is probably very high.
They have trains now that they pull on the highway. It's like they're too long now.
Yeah.
We've seen those. It's like, oh my gosh. So they can just keep spraying and spraying and spraying. I have a question. So what happened in 2013 when you were able to purchase this much?
That was a lease purchase that we did with Wells Fargo. And we were making monthly payments.
So is that a concern, like they're all gonna come due at the same time?
No, they paid them off.
We're rotating them around from there.
In the life at the same time, that's.
Well,
I thought you said you were debt free.
We are, it's
We are.
part of replacement, they're all bought the same year.
Oh.
Normally, if we ran all the trucks every single day, that would be a huge concern. But because we're able to rotate trucks and balance out the mileage and the hours, that's, if you look at the capital plan, they're all spaced out for replacement, and that's how we're doing it. So even though we got them all at the same time, we got them in 2 batches in 2013. We continue to rotate them into low use stations. So for example, the truck in St. Mary's Glacier might run 4 calls a year. So that truck can sit there for the entire year with almost no mileage on those maintenance miles. And the truck that was there rotates into a common use area like Dumont and lives there for a while. So we're constantly rotating the assets around to balance out the hours and the miles. To kind of maximize service life on it.
So how long did it take for you guys to pay those off?
We paid those down. I don't have a note on that sheet, but we paid those off, I believe, in 2013. Our monthly payment on those 9 trucks was $156,000.
So we at least purchased the truck, got the truck built. Once it's 14, 15, and paid long. The advantage of lease purchase at the time was allowed to make the purchase. Get that in process, sign the contract, get the truck chassis built that whole 6, 7 months back then, which is great. Now it's 40 months. And we took delivery of 5, then 4, and got them in service. And then the board immediately, once they were in service, started looking at how do we pay it off to save the interest. Which is similar to what happened to the ladder trucks that we bought. And 06 and 07, kept those on lease purchase for a couple of years and then paid them off. So it's the same philosophy, make the purchase, get them in place, get them in service, look at whatever that total cost was, and then come up with a plan to pay them off.
And we also, you have to do a lease purchase bill for the station, so that was.
Yes.
1%.
Is it true that it's built too small for a fire truck?
That is not true, that is a myth, I'm not
I
sure.
don't
where
really
that
know
came
where that
from.
started. So no, it's, the myth is it's under 40-foot bay and doesn't fit a truck, it fits. It's 40-foot bays, we don't need 40-foot bay, but the only place we need a 40-foot bay is if I were to move a ladder truck at Station 2, for example, and put it up on Floyd Hill, which we've done, I need 38 feet 11 inches.
Wow.
Right? And by the way, Station 2 is 39.6. It was built in like 74, 75.
So you hang a tennis ball?
Similar to that, yeah, we've got about that much.
We've heard
Part
that
it
too,
fits.
right?
So that has gone around since that station was built.
So every time I hear that, I'm gonna say, that is not true, I heard that from the source.
You'll see it actually when you're up there for your meeting, which is late in the season, it's hosted there. Look around, there's a lot more space than it looks like.
That's great.
We only have one truck that won't fit in there, and that's the ladder truck approach. It's got a tandem rear axle, it's a longer truck, it takes
It's longer and taller. So
How long is it?
I don't remember what I'm saying, it's in the 40,
yeah, it's
46 foot, 47 foot range.
Oh my goodness.
And it's
47.
It's taller than, it's 4 inches taller than this other truck because the ladder's got an extra section in it, so it only fits currently in that station. It's more motivation to build a new station sometime in the future is that both ladder trucks can fit inside, this is my dream. That both ladder trucks can fit inside a ladder bay.
Mhm.
And I can actually raise the ladder a little bit and tilt the cab inside. If
Ah.
I do that once in my career, it's like, man, versus I hope it's not gonna rain today. And we think we can get the maintenance done before the storm hits. That's how we've done it all these years. So that's our dream.
But, okay, so the ladder truck that you bring to the ball fields for various events, is that the biggest one or is that one of the small?
I bring the biggest.
Okay.
That's 105.
So the one I climbed all the way up to the top on, that was the biggest one you got? Okay, cool. I got some cool shots of.
Yeah, we're very, very fortunate to have those trucks. It was at the right time. We maximized our Henderson money that we were receiving. All that money, I would say at least 90% of it went to capital rather than operation and stuff.
Yeah, great.
Yeah. Anything else on that?
Speaking of Henderson, if there's an accident up there, do you guys go up there?
Mhm.
We do accidents, we do any fire on the surface.
And they handle underground?
Yes, they handle underground, which they don't do everything, so that's good. They do the underground stuff, we do any fire on the surface, and you have that's on the surface, all the stuff they do. And we can provide check rescue on site for them, so. It's still within the response range, and drove with them and spent a lot of time with them. They're on the side.
Before we move to the next presentation, I want to highlight something, Kelly, that you mentioned. I think it's worth emphasizing. Historic volunteer program. As we started to lose volunteers, like every fire department does, you came up with this shift stipend program to leverage all of the firefighters all over the metro area that are looking to get training. Really, really low cost way to staff our stations. That worked for a long time. It's still working today. You then, when you built and I was just coming into office when you built that training building in Dumont and created the relationship with the Red Rocks Academy. The Red Rocks Academy is now an excellent pipeline for volunteers, which is an excellent pipeline to be having staffing. Recruiting volunteers and staffing is really, really hard to do. And I think this is another example of being innovative with the money you have and getting things done in spite of pretty severe fiscal constraints. So really wanted to just like emphasize, that's a great example of the kind of innovation we're seeing around.
We did a remodel on that Excel building in Dumont. And we put 8 sleeping rooms in there for the shift group, so. And when we first started, we thought, well, we'll have 3 rooms, 4 rooms for our volunteers, and then if the ambulance needs something, we can put a couple of them in there. And we even had an arrangement with Light for Life for a while where they could land in our fenced yard and stay overnight if they had a need to do that, and that never occurred, but. Yeah, so we have 8 rooms there to, if you ever get snowed in and you need a place to stay.
Oh, nice. Heather, you were Jody's listening. Yeah.
You can't get across the bridge.
Right, I'll just walk across the pipe.
Yeah.
It's there. I have to tell you a little story. When I moved to Dumont is when they got that building the year after. And I was out in the backyard with my kids at the time, cooking hot dogs and stuff, and we had our little cooker thing. And we were doing fire mitigation at the time because we have all down by the creek. And Kelly showed up. And my dad was a fireman, so we had our bucket of water, we had our shovels, we thought we like had everything marked off, and he's like, you need to move the fire over to here, away from the brush a little bit more, so I don't know if he was surprised.
I don't remember that.
How equipped I was, cause he saw all the smoke, cause it was kind of wettish stuff.
Everybody on the highway, they see smoke.
Right.
That's our, I mean, it's burdensome, but still good.
Yeah,
They
he's
call
like,
in clouds too.
Oh, I called in, first year living in Evergreen. I called in billows of smoke in the valley. Evergreen Fire Rescue asked me, ma'am, is the smoke yellow? And I said, yes. I was informed that was pine pollen.
Yes.
yeah,
Smoke is basic.
he just said if you're gonna do burns, if you're gonna live straight across from the firehouse. That's what you're gonna get, so. He's like, okay.
And then your other story about seeing that orange glow.
Oh, that's Strawberry Fields.
Yeah.
Cause it glows at night and it
That
looks.
was good.
Yeah, right after, we had the fire that actually killed a neighbor, and then Strawberry Fields is there and we're looking like, oh, there's no fire and it's. And the shop. It glows at night.
There was an ugly fire. Thanksgiving.
It was terrible.
I'm gonna let Jeremy cover a bit of this stuff on this next one because it's mostly operational. And he put it together. I will start, do my part on the second page, and there's some detail here on the budget.
Oh, do you have a copy?
I'll get a copy, hard copy, that way maybe you can put up on the screen.
Oh, that's great.
Is that different than the annual report?
Yeah, that's what Megan has.
Oh, okay.
We'll just stay in order, and when it comes to the budget, I'll
So we wanted to add any feedback if we have it. We'll put it up. I'll put out the PDF one.
Are you all seeing this?
Yes.
Okay.
We're seeing the small version, Megan?
Figure, okay, we'll give everybody a hard copy of this, each one to present it first, and then I'll give it a copy to Megan, and we'll put a copy on the website and all that stuff. So kind of a big deal for us in 2024. Let's get into history for 30 seconds. Starting in 1868, we had formalized fire departments in the county, all volunteer. We didn't have a single career staff, fire staff in Idaho Springs or the town of Georgetown until 2024. That was a big deal. So
Until 2024.
2024, we had paid staffing out of Dumont in the middle of the county, starting in 21. So for 3 years, we were middle of the county and we had 2 people and it worked. And so 24 was a big year for us operationally because for the first time ever, we had 24/7 crews in stations that historically have always been mowed. That goes back a long way. So 1878, Idaho Springs, 68 for Georgetown, all volunteer based within town. So we pulled that off and it was great. We got into Idaho Springs in November because construction was interesting to say the least. And we still staff Dumont with 2, and we're gonna call them volunteer shift firefighter. We just call them shift firefighter. We don't call them volunteers anymore. For this purpose, because it makes a difference for people. Volunteer shift firefighters come up and they make $70 for a shift. We pay for gas money there for a while there. And they can work up to 36 shifts, which is, so we staff out of Dumont with 1 to 2 volunteers. They run a main engine for an area that runs about 104 calls a year in the area, and then they provide the extra truck on the highway. The extra blocking truck is a large engine, and they provide that on both ends of the county, out of Dumont. So that was a change in 24. And you'll get a copy of this, but we say volunteers are the backbone of our system. We can't function. We have 4 career people on staff 24/7. But I need staffing of 8. So I need 4 people that are, and by career, all that means is they're getting an FPPA retirement. They're getting a different retirement than the volunteer pension. Right? They get healthcare, these don't. That's the biggest. So our daily staffing to meet needs to be 8. So that's 2 career in Idaho Springs with 2 volunteers because we have 4 rooms. That's a minimum of 2 in Dumont, and then we don't have room in Georgetown beyond the 2 people we have on staff because we've got EMS on one side and we've got 2 rooms for our staff. So we're looking for average staffing of 8, and we can't do that without these people really giving up their free time. So if you look, those individuals worked 1,002 shifts, which is down because we hired some of them in 24. And then we also have officer stipends, so the officers come up and work shifts for $90. They get an extra $20 for all their heartache. And they covered 111 different additional shifts last year. We need about 2,800 shifts to meet our goal, to put it in perspective of what we're trying to get to. So we need a lot of help, but this is that shift program that George brought up. So the next one, Megan, let's go to the next page. Next page is the budget. Now we're gonna go over the budget highlights and we'll get back into the kind of.
I can't see that from here, so.
Or you could give you a copy.
2024,
Come out of the big
our approved operating budget was $2,296,000.
Okay.
That was an increase of 30% over 2023 because we put that additional shift crew on. And we had some, fairly significant cost increases, insurance being one of the bigger ones. But along with that, we had a capital budget that did not get spent out, so with overspending on the operations and underspending on capital, we were only 2.5% over budget on the operational side. So we had a total revenue of $1,848,000, an increase of 18% over 2023. And most of that was because of Red Rock's money. We were getting $100,000 per session or semester. Only had 2 semesters that year. Last year. So the breakdown on that, the municipal contribution total of $543,000. I'm gonna round up on these. The ESD $748,000. So there's a little bit of a split there. Miscellaneous money at $45,000. We had $329 in charitable contribution. Grants, $55,000. And you'll see the Red Rocks there at $204,000. And then we also made a significant amount of interest on our reserve funds, $250,000. That won't be as big this year because the interest rates have changed a little. And our reserve fund has gotten quite a bit smaller, so we're not making as much money with. Expenditures, we spent $2,353,000 total. Deficit spending at the end of the year with everything that we spent was $1.2 million. And a big part of that was that truck that we purchased and a couple other capital items. And then that extra shift crew, actually both of those caused the deficit spending. We started deficit spending in 2021 when we put that first crew on. Payroll is 72.5% of our budget. There are some departments out there that are almost 80%. And then there's some other departments, some big departments that are down around 60%. It's all relative to the revenue that they bring in. Some interesting stuff I put on there. The cost of our vehicle to respond to calls, a total of $132,000. That's 5.5% of our budget. That vehicle purchase, that was the engine and an off-road vehicle that we purchased to replace one that got damaged that we were able to fix. So we have a pretty good capability of off-road response for rescue. We'll pull this bike park and then the popular four-wheel drive roads that we have throughout the county. We spent $347,000 on building improvements and repairs. The bulk of that going to Station 2 so that we could put a shift crew in there. We had remodeled the second floor of that, and that was an adventure in construction and ended up costing more than we had anticipated. The wildland mitigation crew was a seasonal crew of 3. And we had that. This was our 3rd year last year. And that has been funded by grant money. And total of $90,000 for last year, and that's right about what we got with grant, so we planned that to match up pretty closely.
You anticipate being able to get that this year?
Yeah, I submitted the request this year to CWPG grant. It was a multi-year grant. And then I chose to do all the draw at one time this year. We got 107,000 grant reimbursement right now with the state.
So what's not on there is at the end of 2024, we had 4.3 million in reserve, down from the 6.5 that we had in the end of 2020. We're projecting that we will be at about 3.4 million in reserves at the end of this year. And that's gonna go quickly. That's only gonna last us until 2027 if we don't get some funding. That's the big stuff on the budget for 2024. Every year we trim as much as we can from operational cost to make up for cost increase. There's a 3 to 4% increase in cost in general across the entire budget every year. And we've been trimming that as much as we can. It's getting pretty tight. And next year, if I don't put capital in the budget that we won't spend out, it's gonna be hard to, we're gonna have to pay a lot more attention to not overspending the approved budget, because we don't want to go through that process with the state to amend that budget out. We've done that once. We've done that twice in our history. We have to go back into the minutes for that year to see why it wasn't. I don't even remember. It was back in 2006 or so. That's my part for now. If you have any questions. I've been projecting out cash flow at different scenarios based on mill levy and sales tax and different things. For our next meeting on June 16th, the Finance Committee will have a very tight cash projection to go along with our final number that we think we need to ask. Be able to show that to everyone. And then anytime if anybody has any questions or just wants to learn more about this, I'm available all the time and I can show you all kinds of stuff with budget. Your turn.
Internet. Okay. So what are the shifts that I think we always reference NFPA 1710. 1710 is the National Fire Protection Association standard for coverage because we have career staff and we're not 100% volunteer, we now fall under the same exact NFPA requirements as the West Metro. Yeah, convenient. It's kind of fun that way.
Yeah.
And we've known this, so starting in 21, we knew when we put staff on, we had to start measuring to that standard. So things we looked at for 24 was reduced crew turnout times. The standard says we want them out the door in 90 seconds. From the time they receive the information till the truck rolls out the station should be 90 seconds. We'll get into what that Well, we've been trying to reduce that. We had some struggles in 22 and 23. And I will say a lot of that was probably dispatch related. We had some dispatch related issues with notifications, a lot of stuff that we've since fixed. The other thing we're looking at is, so, and we want two people, we say two people. We want two people at the call address in 8 minutes, 90% of the time. After the standard says. And we have struggled with that, and I'll show you data here later that shows how we struggled when we were out of Dumont and why that having crews on both ends of the county made a remarkable difference in 2024. So that was the next thing we wanted to do, and then we wanted to reduce time on task. So we were spending about 45 minutes on average on every call. Well, when you have 38% of your calls, 38% of the time you have 2 or more calls going at the same time, reducing time on task increases our availability for the next call, and we're getting to improve. So we've been pushing time on task pretty hard, and we wanted to be under 35 minutes. I'll show you the data where we ended up next. Part of that is, and we continue. Hazmat responses is not a everyday thing, but we heavily relied on CSP to provide hazmat response, and the Doug Barnes was the CSP trooper crew is amazing. State Patrol was 17 hazmat troopers down statewide. So we could have a hazmat technician, state trooper come from fires. It's okay, we know those guys, we work with them. That's a long duration to wait. So starting in 23, we said, well, we need to go back into hazmat tech world. I swore we would never do this, but here we are. So we started training, getting people to be hazmat techs again. I'm one of those. I went back and got a hazmat tech. That swore I'd never do it, and here I am. So in 24, we said we need to add 4 more, because 4 more would get us to 12, and it puts at least 2 techs on every ship was the goal, not counting the captain. So this is what we started the year out, and well, we'll hope we can get there. And all this relies on kind of the stars lining up. We changed dispatch in February 2024. We weren't totally sure that was going to be really good or really bad. We didn't know. So if we get into the details of that, average response time for 2023 was 12 minutes and 5 seconds in the whole district. All right, we're shooting for 8 minutes. So we were making that 8-minute response like 35% of the time in 2023. In 2024, the average response time was reduced to 10 minutes and 51 seconds. That's the whole district. That's over the entire 350 square miles we covered. So that's top of Berthoud, that's top of 103, top of Blue Sky, every the whole district. That's a pretty significant reduction. And I'll put the 25, sorry. And our recommendation was we met the 8-minute thing. It's actually 55% of the time. I guess I crossed the numbers from the current year, or 60% as we said today. So that's a pretty big reduction. That's 2 minutes in response time overall, over 1,796 calls. That adds up over the year. And turnout time. So we finished 2023. We've been striving to get turnout times lower. Below 3 minutes was like this thing. And usually this is a big deal is we'll do all volunteer department will use this scenario.
What's a turnout time versus a response time?
Turnout time is how long from the time they tell us where we have to go until we actually the truck leaves the station. This is why this is kind of a big deal for why we have crew staffing. I think this conversation is we're all volunteer. So in all volunteer department, I'm coming from my house. So I could have up to a 10-minute drive to the station. I have to get out of my car, go in the station, get all my gear on, get on the truck. So now we're about 13 minutes in. You're having a heart attack in your driveway. That's what we use, because we do a lot of cardiac arrest in the county. So we're 13 minutes in since you called 911. And then we'll say ideal, we have an 8-minute drive time. Great. So 21. Yeah. We're 21 minutes before we arrive on your driveway and you're still having a heart attack in your driveway. So this is the argument for why we have at least a mixed career crews. And I'll get to details, but we'll just say they take 90 seconds to leave the station. They take 8 minutes to drive. We're under 10 minutes to your driveway. I'd rather have advanced life support with EMS and us in your driveway in 10 minutes
Yeah.
than 21. So that's why we make the argument of is the cost for career crews worth it? It is. In those situations especially. Fires is a whole different scenario because buildings that used to be, we had 25 minutes to work in a structure, in a historic structure, because of what was in the structure. Now it's 12 minutes or less because we have furniture and all this artificial stuff in our living environment that went to cans of gas in it. So even more, so what we had leeway on structure fires when we were all volunteer was legit. I've been in fires at 40 minutes since they called, and we were having a conversation in the structure because it was up and standing, it was safe. That is not the case with modern construction, not the case with modern living. So that's changed the environment, so we had to change it. So we did. So if you look at this, the average times, so we'll do the turnout times after this, but so average time on scene in 2023 was 40, almost 46 minutes. And that was lower than the almost hour we were spending on scene prior to that. We finished 2024 at 29 minutes and 38 seconds for all, that's the average for all 1,796 responses. And that's considering that some of our backcountry responses could be 3-hour responses depending on where they're at. Average time on task for the mountain bike park is 1 hour and 40 minutes.
Man.
For one trauma, we did 6 traumas in the mountain bike, the Virginia County open space area. In 7 weeks, it was open to 6 traumas with an average of 1 hour and 40 minutes per incident.
Is that because they're hard to find?
It's access, it's time to get in, time to package, time to get out, it's just location.
Yeah,
So,
you can't get a truck in there, you know.
so
Do you
we,
guys have an electric mountain bike like the Idaho Springs Police?
we do, actually, I love that Chief Busey bought bikes. We bought bikes through a RETAC grant first, and he went, I think I need bikes, and I said, yes, you do. So he gave us access. So we look at that. So you look at those calls, which are the outliers. So we've reduced our time on task to something that's really low as much as we can until we get our overall average down. So the crews did this, all because they got tired of listening to me, like pull up data going, hey, you're not going to make a stand, keep working harder. But we're doing this because we want to provide the best service we can with what we have available to us.
I have a question,
Yeah.
back to where you was talking about the hazmat. So does CDOT compensate you at all for you doing basically their job, or do you?
CDOT has no response. So Colorado State Patrol is responsible for, they're the designated emergency response area agency for the interstate in Colorado unless it's owned, unless it's annexed into a county. So for example, this is Idaho Springs, that falls on us. We do build.
Wait a minute, I-70 through Idaho Springs is annexed to the town?
Yeah, we control it, so we're the DARA for this section.
Yeah, we're drunk with power.
Yeah.
So,
We were
so,
elected
so,
supervisors.
so little, I mean, you're the big city in the county, but little tiny Idaho Springs is responsible for 35,000 cars a day.
Yeah,
And
for
CDOT
what about
doesn't-
4.5 miles?
Yeah, so actually.
And Colorado State Patrol does
38,000
not,
bucks if
Yeah.
you're getting the fund details, current status.
Right.
does
30,000.
not respond?
So
No,
where's
they
that
do,
Wesley
so
Ash
CSP within Idaho Springs is a support agency. They will assist the ISPD officers and they will assist us. They'll give us a hazmat tech when they're available to assist us. And that's the same situation throughout the whole.
So the worse they do their job, the more you have to pick up, the more that's costing us and the less it's costing them.
Yeah,
And you're trying to keep those numbers up, so it's
this is where the
like the
challenge
bad
happens.
kid that's.
And the issue with CSP is, and you can't really hammer CSP, they've got retired, people as the technicians are retired out. The time it takes to train a new technician. Get an officer that's willing to go through that 2-year process. And then get them through that process, which is not any fun. Is why they have a 17 hazmat trooper deficit, and they're working. We're going to, our people are going to hazmat tech class with troopers. I went with like 4 of them. So they're working on the problem, but the big picture is neither agency has the capacity to deal with the sheer amount of freight, hazardous materials that move on I-70. Because this is the only corridor, really, highway corridor, east and west in the state of Colorado. Otherwise, on the highway, you want to go to 80 in Wyoming. So, kind of, sort of, we built our own problem. Right, we can all agree on that, so that's why we added hazmat techs. And it's been good, so when you look at this stuff, we've got a minimum 2 hazmat techs on shift 24/7. We can do fuel offloads, we can do all the stuff that we used to wait for CSP to do, we can do ourselves and get it done, get the highway back open. Because you look at the economic impact of the state, we all hear about it's $2 million an hour to shut I-70 down. I shut it down for 35 minutes and I had a statewide meeting to explain my actions. 1 year. So our goal is to keep the highway open and so it's accessible to the people who live here. And one of the solutions was we'll go back into the hazmat business and we bill for that time. We can bill for it under statute.
Who do you bill?
The actual owner of the company, but the drawback is what we're finding, and tow companies can attest to this, is most businesses they don't want to pay. So there's a lot of billing out. We've got a lot of billing. CSP has a ton of billing out. And the return on billing that used to be pretty good is nil now.
Is that because they don't enforce, if you don't pay, you can't drive on the road?
Well, there's a lot of things
There's
because
a bill, George. I know my son's girlfriend, when he got together with her, couldn't drive, she couldn't get her car registered because she had so many toll tickets.
Yep.
It was like $5,000 in toll tickets, and when she went to register her car, she couldn't register the car anymore.
but
So
it's,
if we did something where they couldn't register the truck anymore because they had these
Yeah.
fines.
you almost have to affect their DOT number, which is the federal. And that's the
Yeah.
drawback to hazmat transportation, it's federally regulated. CDL is not a state license, for those who don't know that, it's a federal license. The state issues my CDL, but my CDL is a federal license.
That's why Jeremy has to pass a drug test.
That's actually one of the myriad reasons I like to be.
Can the feds pick up those costs?
What's that?
Can the feds pick up the costs
No,
when you
there's-
have to do hazmat if it's a federal
There's
thing?
no funding structure for it.
Okay.
So that's where we kind of realized this was an issue starting in 2021. We made some shifts in 22 and we pushed hard in 23, 24. We've got the technicians, we're gonna add hopefully 4 more this year if they're successful, because that test is terrible. The written exam for that is a nightmare, and I pity they have to do it, but it's part of how they're gonna do it. So we're trying to get to 16 techs in 25, but we've got 12 techs right as we sit today. And we are the only hazmat technician department outside of Summit has hazmat techs, we have hazmat techs. Evergreen does not. Foothills does not. Genesee does not. So you have hazmat techs in Golden. You have this large area of no hazmat techs. You have us, you have Summit County, and then you have the Eagle County Department. So for those that saw the tanker truck that the Tesla ran into the back of on Genesee, we sent techs to that. So part of that mutual aid is with Foothills Fires, we would love to send you technicians. If you're willing to send us people for structure fires and whatever else we need, and we agree. So we sent 4 technicians down there and they worked that hazmat response.
So
Which
they
is-
didn't pay you, they just agreed to help out for a fire later on?
With mutual aid agreements, that's the reality of the world, and I think we all live in is. We can't do everything 100% ourselves, and they can't either. So we have to share resources, and so for Evergreen Fire, for example, they used to use West Metro. The Jeffco Adams hazmat team provided all of their hazmat coverage, has since been disbanded. West Metro is pulling their hazmat response back into their district out of necessity because of their call load. And there are some things in limbo right now. So the nearest Jefferson County hazmat response would actually come out of the Arvada Fire Station. So there's some things changing in the hazmat world that we recognize. And we want to be good partners with our neighboring agencies because we need them as much as they need us. I'll give them a hazmat response with a couple of technicians that are willing to come pull ceiling and structure fire at 2 in the morning. I think it's a fair trade.
Alright.
So that's the trade that we've got into. So we did pretty good meeting the goals, but that's 24 goals, and 24 goals, that's over, right? Now we're in 25 goals. So going to the next page, maybe.
Jeremy, maybe you'll talk about this later. Our EMS has pulled us that because we asked them about time on task spent at Virginia Canyon Mountain Park.
Yep.
And Clear Creek EMS, it's 10% of our time on task is at Virginia Canyon Mountain
Yeah,
Park.
it's that hour and hour and 40 minutes adds up over those things, so it's, yeah, it was a 10% time on task for that block that we pulled the data from.
So that's a similar stat for you.
And that was, they were open the entire time.
Well, we're over about 7 weeks, I think, last year.
These are
So during
7 weeks,
that period.
so we anticipate that picking up. Floyd Hill was closed last year, Floyd Hill mountain bike trails are open this year, we've already been once. So that's kind of the reality on top of, everybody thinks I-70 is all they do. I-70 US 6 and 40 is like 38% of our call load total, all combined. It's not everything we do, it's a very small portion of what we do on those roads respectively. We spend a lot more time doing, I don't feel good, I'm having chest pain, I have fallen down the stairs, and all that stuff. We have an aging community, right? We know that our demographics are aging. Our call load reflects that too, and we'll show you that stuff, so. It's interesting when you look at that shift of, and when we were volunteer, to give you perspective, we didn't run medical assists. We used to run 200 calls a year. It was awesome. We were talking to Indian Hills today, they run 150 calls a year, and I go, man, 3 calls in one day is terrible. Wow, we run 150 calls a month. Just to kind of put it in perspective of how things have changed within the community too. And it's not a bad thing. I think providing quality medical care, working with EMS and is key to why people live here, right? It's what we should be doing.
Do you think
so
people call you too, because the lack of like health insurance and?
I think that's a little bit of it. We see a little bit of that, but a lot of it is, I think people are more willing now to admit they're having a rough time. They're having a bad day. They just can't power through it. So we're seeing an uptick, and that's not a bad thing. We do a lot of lift assists. We don't bill for lift assists. EMS doesn't bill for lift assists, but if you fall in your home, we don't want you to go, man, I don't want to call because I can't afford the bills. Call us. It takes us 10 minutes to get you up, make sure you're good, get you back in your chair, and make sure you're taken care of. And worst case, we call chat and we say, hey, in the next couple of days, can you swing by and look at this and talk to this individual because they might be eligible, a good candidate for some assistance programs. Chat follows up with them and then they get the assistance they need. So it doesn't happen twice. It's what we should be doing, even though there's a cost to it, right? Nothing's free, but I think we should do the right things with our reasons on time. And figure out how we pay for it creatively every single day of the week.
Thank you for reporting that stat. I know this is all kind of spun out of the conversation about Virginia Canyon Mountain Park. I have my eye on, I think we should, all of us, because we pay into the fire department, should have our eye on. Just watching those costs, that number maybe goes down as we gain operational efficiencies, but at some point, we probably have to have a conversation about how to derive revenues directly from that operation into our EMS and fire systems.
George, I agree with you. In fact, I just had a private conversation right before the meeting with Brian, who I'm very glad is with us tonight. And I am in no way speaking for council. This is just my personal belief. The mountain bike park is a tremendous amenity to have here at Idaho Springs. Although it hasn't been open very long, we're learning. Like one thing, for example, with the frequency and the seriousness of some of these calls. I know Jeremy had expressed the feeling was, oh, maybe we'd get a broken thumb or dislocated shoulder or something, and instead, you know, I think it was like 6 of the 7 that they responded to saw a trauma surgeon before the day was out. Yeah. And I bring this up because people push it, particularly young men are their own worst enemies. And, you know, I personally, and this is why I say I'm not speaking for council, but I just have to believe that they would be very interested in the bike park paying for its own way. I don't think that there is a member of council that would have wished for the bike park to open so we could have a lot of visitors at the expense of the citizens of the county. And I think that we have an opportunity very shortly to fund the trails maintenance. I think that the right thing to do would be to pay for whatever the portion of the emergency response of that park is, and pay its own way. That's all I'm saying. I don't think anybody wants to be a burden on the county or a drag on our emergency response. Folks.
Could you clarify something for me? That isn't I mean, that's a private entity that opened that? The Virginia Mountain Bike Park?
Well, the city owns the property. It's our mountain bike park.
Okay, so who would pay?
Well, we have a funding source that has not been approved quite yet.
Oh, okay. Oh, so if I wanted to go mountain biking there, I could pay a fee to go mountain biking there?
No, it's
Go
free.
to- Oh,
It's absolutely free.
okay.
But
But your person,
Gondola is private.
so,
The gondola.
oh, yeah.
yeah,
That's,
I would just suggest if, and this will be up to council, if we have paid parking on the east end,
Mhm.
that it makes perfect sense for a portion of the paid parking to go to support mountain bike park, because we all know you could always get a spot to park on the east end. Now, it's a challenge to get parking on the east end. Why? Because we have this great mountain bike park. So let the visitors who come and enjoy the park pay for the trails maintenance. I just think it would be horrible to go to our citizens and say, hey, the trails are tore up from visitors. How about you fork over 100 G's so we can groom them?
Right.
You know, that I
Yes.
just think would be very wrong. Similarly, I happen to believe it would also be wrong, I'm making a number up, for us to say, oh, it was a $50,000 drag on our emergency services,
Right.
right? I think that in all fairness, it should pay for itself. And again, I
So trail
don't,
maintenance and EMS.
yes, I think it's a great amenity to have, but I don't think it should be a drag on any of the citizens of Idaho Springs or the county.
I was
The
sent a,
responsibility of the people that are riding these bicycles that get hurt. Why is there not some kind of a waiver or some kind of a form they have to sign before they get to use the park? In the event there are these type of expenses, why is none of that passed on to the guy who's bleeding laying on the mountain?
And I would just say, I've never heard of it,
Understand that.
I've never heard of it in Colorado.
Well.
Yeah,
okay, then it
usually the
doesn't make it
waivers
impossible.
are waiving your right to sue, like a ski resort if
Well,
you get
yes.
injured.
But I just meant that type of a form. It just doesn't make sense that you're looking to spread this all out and the ones who caused the need for all these expenses are not paying anything.
this is where, I'm actually sending an email, like, wow, we gotta actually figure out what our costs are, because we EMS bills for medical services.
Okay.
And so there's some reimbursement there. right?
30%, better than nothing.
And yeah, and I don't know exactly what it is, but I'm sending an email to Brian.
30 to 40% in terms of what we put back.
Trying to figure out, it sounds like we have a near-term obligation in letting you know what our costs really are.
I was sent a message by a constituent, yesterday that they had visited the Mighty Bike Park. And they wanted to know if you could put up a thing so that they could, donate money,
Oh, wow.
to.
That's
the
an excellent
organization.
suggestion, excellent.
Wonderful.
We should be able to do that
A QR code.
quickly and very inexpensively. I like the QR code idea too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because people get in the pipes and steal the
Yeah.
money.
Right, right,
And when they always have their fun.
right?
And you know, there is free parking options. If somebody wanted to park, it's essentially north of the Hot Springs Resort entrance. Those parking spaces go almost to I-70, those are free. And ride their bike over, the park's free. So there are free options, but a lot of people will opt for, if the council approves, for the paid parking on Colorado Boulevard. And I just think that those funds are not restricted as downtown parking is restricted. I just feel that the right thing to do would be to maintain that amenity so it doesn't ever degrade, and for it to pay its own way.
And it is a good amenity, I definitely, yeah, I'll just stop with that, it is a good amenity. Not trying to.
Okay, go ahead.
Fun.
Sorry.
No, this is what we wanna talk about, right? This is, it's a changing environment for us. And if our goal is to make this a recreation county, which if you look back to some of the plans going back to the county level of 15, 16, 17, that's kind of the direction it was going in, so there are definitely some impacts even that we didn't anticipate with, some of these new amenities, so it's been different for us too. I'll send the copy this out. This is that 8 minute, 2 people in 8 minutes, and it's hard to see in here, but so 19 and 20, we were all volunteer, with the exception of like weekday staff. 2019, we met the goal of 8 minutes, 16.8% of the time, and then 2020, it was 16.6. It was a little slower because, you know, we had a few more protocols we had to do before we actually arrived at your house in 2020. And then that's been growing. It's in the 22%, 22, 23, 25% through 2022. And in 23, we start seeing it. 24 and 25, we see the spike, and as we added the cruise, and we also made the shift. So we'll go to the next one. So, and take time when we send this out there, but look at the fun with this. But I used April, for example, because April was done for the year, and I can historically look back April to 2019, my data set. So we made the goal 55% of the time in 2024, we were 8 minutes. Within 8 minutes to your house was crew up to 55% of the time. We're currently sitting at 60% of the time year to date with the first 4 months of the year. The chart on the bottom is give you a perspective of where we're shooting for. The only municipal boundary that has less service now, has a slower service today than they had historically prior to us splitting up, was Empire. But we anticipated that because when you're down the street in Dumont, Empire was the winner prior. They were like 83% of the time in under 8 minutes prior to that, and now they're like 56%. So we knew we'd anticipated that. But so the blue is 2025, the green is 2024, and the historic data, which is 2019, is the orange. So if you look at the bottom one, Central ESD, that's the Dumont DLD area. Yeah, we were doing great in that area because we were always there, even when we were all volunteer. We're still doing okay. That drop down, which we knew it would, but where we're looking at the change, and we talked about Georgetown year to date is 80% of the time, and the only reason it's 80% of the time is we have been to the tunnel more the last 4 months than I can ever remember, except when he was probably first starting out. We have been to the tunnel for MVAs and medical conditions and seizures and all kinds of stuff over motor vehicle accidents and medicals on one on top of another. Which is rare. Normally it balances out. It probably still balance out the year a little bit, but it's been pretty sharp in the data that the number of times we went that far up. And I'm not sure what was driving it this year, but it was everything from truck drivers. We had a hazmat load that we had to help CSP with an entry on, and a bunch of weird stuff that happened in the data set. So we have a drop in response time to Georgetown because we're coming back down from the tunnel. Makes sense. So Idaho Springs is still the winner. It's 91.2 within city limits Idaho Springs year to date, which is what we anticipated by moving the crews down. But everybody else went up. West ESD is about where it always is. We're 25% year to date, but that balances out in the summertime because we get a little faster in the summer. So that balances out to that 30% range usually. East ESD is all the stuff from here south on 103, top of Mount Blue Sky. All the stuff at Floyd Hill, that's East ESD, just to give you guys a perspective. So overall, everything's up. So splitting the crews up end to end in the county was the right decision. The data backs it. We thought we'd have a positive change in reducing response times, and that thought is one thing, but I want the data to back it. So the data is backing it. Well, I'm curious to see how the end of the year turns out. But right now it's trending at a higher level than I anticipated it going to, so.
And ESD stands for.
Emergency Services District, so.
Okay.
It's the unincorporated part of the community. West ESD is everything that's unincorporated from basically, Downeyville West. East is everything that's unincorporated from Downeyville East, so, Fall River, Floyd Hill, York Gulch, all of 103, Cascade Creek, all of those areas fall into East ESD. So it's a huge area. Geographically, it's a monster, and we have 24 miles of 103. We have 31 miles of I-70. So you start looking at drive times, it becomes a pretty large area.
And difficulty of the road too, one of
Right,
three,
and
you
it-
can't buzz up.
Right, you can't buzz up, and you have weather and other events, and it all delays it, so. I'll be curious to see how this turns out end of the year, but so far, we were trending up at the end of 24, and then we're continuing to trend as we anticipated now, so we think the staffing does a better job meeting the needs of the community served. Any questions on this before we? All right, you can go on for the next one.
Well, remind me of the border with Evergreen Fire and.
So we go to the top of Floyd Hill.
Okay.
On I-70, we have all of US 40 to Jeffco 65, so that area from US 40 is ours, and all the stuff north of US 40 is us. We split Floyd Hill essentially in half. And we split Beaverbrook. We have the top side of Beaverbrook, they have the lower side of Beaverbrook. And it's about mile marker 23, 24 on 103 is where that line actually is. Before you get to Witter.
Okay.
It's right
Yeah.
there. You'll see a small sign, you have to really look for it. Right toward Meadow. So we have 346 square miles really, we're it's under 350. When you get into it. So this is staff, we finished 2024 with 55, total of 55 firefighters on the roster. 16 of those are career full-time, 39 of those are shift firefighters. I say shift firefighters, that's whether they come up and shift for $70, they live in the community, they're all the same. We've made that pretty clear, I think, and then, and they all maintain certification, so if you look at this, out of the 55, we had 39 individuals that either had firefighter 1, firefighter 2, right, one or the other. All of those certifications required to have at least hazmat awareness and operations, so that's where we get 39. We have 12 hazmat techs. We have 1403 live fire instructors are what allows us to do live fire training, whether we teach Red Rocks or we certify our people. We currently have 6 instructors. I'm gonna go teach a class over in the Conifer area, and hopefully I can get 1 or 2 more out of my organization into that class. We teach that regionally over the state. We donate our time for that. It costs 18 money. I need a hobby. That's one of my hobbies. I teach live fire. I'm a live fire instructor. So we have 6. We have 4 paramedics right now. We have 22 EMTs. That's either advanced or regular EMT. We block them together. And we have 5 people that are emergency medical responders. We have 16 individuals on the department that are rope technicians. That's the majority of that 16 are rope technicians. 3 is as high as you can go in the rope technician world. And we are currently working on getting the state of Colorado Pro Board rope technician certification that just came out. I'm the only one so far, but we're working through that because we would participate in that program to develop it. So we've got guys currently testing in that process so that we can proctor other departments and get that rolled out statewide. And then we run 12 so far rescue technicians. The team design is 12. And we don't anticipate adding any more in 25, maybe 26, we'll add a couple, but the team historically since 1983 has been a 12-person team. That's kind of the happy number. And we maintain that. That doesn't count shore support. Shore support adds about another 20. So the total so far team is about 32 individuals. And we used to be a statewide team. We haven't gone available statewide in a while, but we did that historically through the history of the team. We've gone all over the state of Colorado and all did searches for departments that didn't have the resources or the training or ability to do it. Because nothing's worse than a small department saying, we'd like to find your loved one. We don't have a skill set, so we've done a lot of searches. All over the state to kind of bring closure to families, which that's what the team, that's one of the things the team's always done is a big three, so. We haven't done that in the last several years. Last one we did was in Vail. Probably 5-6 years ago, we went to Vail for fatality. Recovery for Vail fire in an area that would be. It's the same thing. We might have to call for the same assistance depending on what we have here, so we. Small world, that's a small community of so far technicians in the state that can be done. Pictures example, we had a single vehicle go out the Central Parkway in 24, all in that. If you look in that picture and you get the real picture, that little red dot in the bottom is the car. That's about 190 feet down the embankment is where the car landed. We had 2 critical patients, 1 okay patient. That is Central City Fire Department's response area. Central City Fire has 0 rope technicians at the time of this call, 0. Alpine Rescue was tied up on a mission at the same time. We had just left them when this call dropped. And then, so they were tied up, their team was tied up, and we came to this call and we did 3 uphauls. We flew one, we transported 1 critical patient emergent, we transported the last one non-emergent. Took about 45 minutes to get all 3 patients up, and we had Foothills Fire come in, Central City Fire, then us, and then of course Clear Creek EMS and Gilpin EMS. So subsequent to that, and we'll get into that in the future slide, we did some more training with Central City, and we put on a rope splash for them to get them to a higher level, because they identified a need, and we we're willing to get some time and come hang out at night and train your volunteers. That makes sense to us. So we did that. So any questions on certs? This is just the high level stuff. This isn't the stack of certs that.
I have a question, because, like on your response time, how it's improved so much since you are an all volunteer crew. That's a heck of a good marketing piece if you're asking for more funding, so you're not in the deficit spending, but. It'd be interesting if you had some of the data on what typically you guys had for training as volunteer, because this shows a much higher level of safety that people would be happy to pay for. And the picture is anecdotal. That's really good, but to know that you guys are also doing some of the training you're doing, what do you call it? Test marketing or whatever you're doing it for firefighters across the state. Those type of things to me sets your department apart from some of these other folks. That level of training and where they were, say 5 or 10 years ago. That's something people will pay for.
It's 10 years. So we started down this path in 2015. There's no requirements to car for you to have certification, volunteer certification state, which is rare. There's a few out there. Most states require a stack of stuff. Colorado's volunteer. We would really like you to be certified if you're willing to do it. Okay, makes sense.
That's what I thought.
And because of that, and if you get out east, if you get a small department out east, if you find one individual in the department that's firefighter 1, it's like a unicorn. They don't have the facilities, they don't have the people, they don't have people that can JPR. It's an issue. That's one of the reasons why we teach live fire instructors throughout the state, is to try to fill that gap so that they can get to that thing. So we started down this path in 2015 of, okay, we need to certify our people. We've survived 100 years at this point, but we probably should have certs beyond the medical certs that we've always had. What's figured out, and it took us a couple of years to figure that system out so that we can not rely on other departments to do the certs. So we're self-sufficient, and we share resources. In fact, I'm going to miss the meeting on the 16th. I'll tell you now, because I'm actually proctoring for Evergreen Fire, their new staff, to get them through the state process. I'm going to go over and proctor that to get them through it. So we share proctors, and we're self-sufficient. The burn building was a big thing. That was one of our big things. We needed a burn facility And we need live fire instructors to meet the standard that we can use it, so we're not borrowing facilities, and all this stuff is falling into place. Then now we readily certify people, and on top of teaching Red Rocks Academy, and then we do regional academy and some other stuff. We're doing academy this summer for a mini academy for Central City, because they have no fire ones on their department right now. It's okay, over 6 weeks, we think we can solve that problem. Here's what it looks like, and we're doing it this summer. Because we were there, we were 100% those people. We had, people we had certified worked on larger departments. That's why they had it. And the people that were volunteering for our department had it and lost it because we didn't have the ability to maintain it, which is the reality. You can't maintain GPRs because you couldn't do it, or never had it at all. So it's a pretty big shift, and it's the right thing to do, because if we're striving for the 1710 standard, this is part of that whole, this is how we get to that standard. We have certified people, we're in the correct apparatus with the correct response time, showing with the correct training and equipment on scene, and we have interventions, and we have positive patient outcomes. Or we have structure fire outcomes that are rebuildable homes. Other than a couple trailer houses that I freely admit that I made a decision that they were a loss from a safety perspective. We have a trailer in Idaho Springs that is livable. We wouldn't have said that 10 years ago. That's just, the data doesn't support that. So this is what supports that, is the level of training. The crews train, for example, they train 6 hours a week with EMS. So each crew trains 3 times a week, 2 hours a shot with EMS every week. So over 300 hours of training a year, if we don't do anything beyond the base schedule. We've been doing that for 2 years. All of this goes into performance. So next slide, we'll get through this. So this is kind of a breakdown of stuff for us. So 77% of our calls are rescue and emergency in a category. That's medical related, right? So if you break that down even farther, so we don't do a lot of structure fires. It's like 2 and 3% on a bad year. That's the national average. Structure fires aren't what they used to be, which is good. We do everything else. So if you look at rescue and emergency medical calls, types increased from 76% in 23 to 77% in 2024. A little uptick, but we understand that because so 1,384 responses out of the 1,796. I mean, of this category. So that category almost 1,384 responses were medical had a medical component to it. It's a series of categories. Out of those, 941 or 68% were directly assisting Clear Creek EMS. That's us providing medical care at the same time the EMS provides medical care, and that's a seamless thing anymore. It's really a good thing. There's no lines, that's not my job. They just go to work and they provide high quality medical care 100% of the time. So, but we break that out because I was always curious to see what it is. Motor vehicle accidents accounted for 349 of those calls, right? Which is only 25% of the total call load are actual MVAs. So out of the 38% of the calls on highways, only 25% of those are actual motor vehicle accidents. But we recognize motor vehicle accidents as being the biggest impact because they have the biggest impact on our days. It delays the highway, it backs up traffic into town. So we see the impacts on those, we go, well, it's gotta be happening every 3 seconds, and it's not. So 25% are MVAs, the rest of that 38% are literally people pulling over and going, I don't feel right. And they call for an ambulance, medical related calls. And other things like I smell something, I think I see smoke or smoking breaks, those kind of things. So it's a pretty small number of the total responses, but it does take a lot of time. That's where the offset happens, right? Time on task. So we do this constantly throughout the year, but yeah, false alarm and false calls are alarm systems, and just sometimes as people go, I think I smell the following when they don't, which is okay. I'd rather have them call 100% of the time they go, I didn't think it was real, it was real. We don't want that. Good intent calls, we categorize good intent. Good intent is your example for pollen, right? We've all done that. We do that, we chase pollen. I'd rather have you call 100% for pollen than go, wow, it's gotta be pollen. No, that's actually not pollen, that's a problem. Right, those are good intent calls. So we categorize those accordingly. We've got better data because we're better at how we look at that. Service calls, we are the plumbers of the county. So when you break a water line, who do you call? You call 911. I didn't know that, that's the reality. Okay, we'll come shut your water off. We'll call in your trailer, shut your water off. It takes us 15 minutes to limit damage in your home. Thanks for calling. We've gone to the hot springs like 4 times because they broke water lines in hotel rooms, and it's the people below going, something's going on, my room's flooding. You know what? We can take care of that. No problem. They're getting paid to be on shift. Right? We're paying them to be at work. So other than the fuel that costs us to drive to the hot springs, we're already paying them to be at work. So it's not like it costs us $1,000 to go to the hot spring and turn it out. It costs us whatever that fuel cost is to go up there and back. Wear and tear. Right? That's what we're talking about from the cost. Is it the right customer service? 100% done. Right? We're good with that. That's across the board. Every fire department lives in that world. FDNY carries keys to turn on water to buildings for that reason. It's what they do. It's that service delivery. So we track this better. We're better at categorizing our calls, just to give us a better idea of where we're at. Hazardous conditions, no fire is hazmat calls. I spilled something, I smelled something, I've got a gas leak, all that stuff. That's hazardous conditions, no fire. We want to categorize those, so we do that. So look at fires is what, 2.51%. Pretty low number, pretty high impact, pretty low number. I think that's where I think some of the fear comes in.
We do still, though, design the system, like from a staffing perspective. The fire is the call that you need the most people for, right? So that's what we design.
So
We
fire
design for a
17.
fire response. Because we're the only agency that'll show up when someone's house is burning down, and that still matters, regardless of how often.
Right. We plan for that. And that's where your expenses come, why it's expensive in the fire department. What's the expense for the police for, right? You are staffing a police department at a really high level, hoping that their staffing alone deters crime. Because the intent is they don't have to do anything, right? If the system works, they don't have to do anything but drive around and talk to people and pet dogs and say hi to neighbors. If they don't make a single arrest, that means your system's working. Fire's the same way. What we don't want to do as well, we really wish we would have had 4 people. We could have caught that fire before it burned through downtown, but we only had 2 people today. And the second person was coming from home, and we just weren't sure how far they were. So that's where that shift has occurred. That's why everyone's doing the same stuff they're doing for their cases. Yeah.
That number includes wildfire?
Yep.
Like meadow fires?
Yeah, we don't have a lot. We burned, we had 1 large fire last year for a little over 5 acres. On average, we lose 5 acres or less per year, every year. What year was minor scandal?
Oh, yeah, I remember that.
That trashed my entire average. I'm really upset.
Oh.
Literally, I was under 5 acres for years. Total burn in the county. All the fires combined, under 5 acres. Minor scandal was over 16 acres. It wiped out my entire average in like 35 minutes.
That was terrifying too, because the wind kept shifting and
That was interesting, yeah.
it was
Well,
around Christmas time and.
it was on my birthday. And it was weird because we had been on a fatal climbing accident down in the canyon the day before. So we were already kind of having a weird weekend anyways. And then that fire, we got notified of that about 6:30 in the morning. From somebody having coffee, looking across the valley from Mill Creek going, that looks bigger than a campfire. Again, this is why we want people to call all the time. I rode around 100 false alarms and missed the 1 real alarm. That individual with coffee caught miner's candle, which is why the crews were able to get up there. And they were able to notify it was a wildland fire before it spotted across the valley. So we already had crews coming in before it made it to run across the valley the half-mile run. So people calling 100% of the time, that's what we need. If we get irritated, the crews get irritated once in a while, we go, hey, would you rather have not calling? I get it. You're frustrated, you're tired, it's okay. We want to call 100% of the time. So that includes fires. So we look at that, it's a big deal. We talk about fire though, we haven't had a major fire in about 130 years in the county. Yeah, knock on whatever it is, we have to knock on it, because that's a problem. So, any questions on fund stuff? We'll give you a PDF version of this, you can go through the fund data if you like to. George likes data. All right. This is kind of an interesting split. We're always looking at where the calls in the county. 2024, so Downeyville East was 50% of the calls. So they got a full half on this end. 43% was the west end, with the exception of we broke out the Downeyville Lawson geo box. That's 6% green is that geo box of the DOD area, which is 104 responses. It's that little box. And the 1% is Evergreen Fire and some Central City stuff. Just because it goes into that area. And the bottom breaks down the number of calls for each area. If you want to see how many calls within your neighborhood per se happened in 2024, that's the bottom section.
Is the DLD the special district then? Is that
No,
where you-
I try to break everything into boxes. So we call that central ESD, and we have geo box that, so basically it's Lawson to Dumont, and it includes Mill Creek, because Mill Creek's kind of an anomaly. It doesn't really fit in Empire, it doesn't really fit in Fall River, so we broke that out as a box because we want to track data for that area. So that's 104 responses for the entire year for that geo box. So that includes going to Port of Entry, that includes going down to Conoco for sick. I don't feel good, all that stuff. It's pretty low number of calls. But the reason we track that is previous conversations about staffing out of Dumont was, well, you got to staff out of Dumont because there's such a high population concentration there. You've got to have a demand. I don't know. Let's find out. I run the data. We don't have a high demand, which is why we made the staffing decision to move to Iowa Springs and Georgetown and still staff volunteer there, which is 100% of the time. We made it because the data shows us that this is where our call was for. And this is where response times are being impacted by location. So that's why we do our staff. All right, next slide. Okay. This is the data if you want to go through response time. Station 2, for example, is Iowa Springs. Average response time for 24 is 10 minutes, 10 seconds for an EMS call. It's 9 minutes and 43 seconds for a fire. It is longer for EMS. EMS also includes trips, slips, trips, and falls. Some non-emergent responses for assists are in that. So it should have a little slower time historically because we run a lot of those. Turnout time, and we ended up end of 2024 is 20 seconds. So we talk about, we went 90 seconds out the door. From the time they get officially notified on the radio to the time the truck is out the door, it's down to 20 seconds. The reason that is because we get pre-notified now. As soon as the 911 call enters the system and says, yes, we're generating a call, we get that notification pushed to I am responding, our online system. So we know about it as soon as the call taker has the call. So they're already figuring out roughly where they're going and what all that's done, getting dressed, getting ready, so that shortens our time. They're out the door faster. So by the time it actually gets to the point that they've said, yeah, this is a real call, a lot of times they're in the truck. And if they determine, never mind, for example, Soda Creek is right here. There's an address on Soda Creek that would be under I-70 for those that care. It's in Jefferson County. We were toned to that last year about 7 times. It's an elderly couple. They fall down. But it kept getting initially pushed over to us as it was our Soda Creek. So for example, they're already sitting in the truck and the truck's running, and they're like, wait a minute. That's under the highway. There's no house there. So it's kind of a give and take. So they may not even pull out the bay, and it's canceled by the time it gets to the dispatcher. But we're pushing that, and a lot of this is JeffCom has some unique abilities to notify us and pass information effectively. that we honestly struggled when we had a single dispatcher trying to multitask 24/7 in Georgetown. Not their fault, it's task saturated, they couldn't do it. Jeffcom has the capacity, and they continue to add more and more function. Every meeting, they add another function and more interoperability, and we're seeing it, now we're maintaining, we had a hard time getting under 2 minutes. 25 looks about the same, about 20 seconds, so we're maintaining that improvement.
That is really good to know.
That's crazy cool. We had folks that were bad mouthing the Jeffcom system,
Yeah, and we did.
but the data is,
Well, the rules, we also have the same,
World of
the
difference.
world is coming to an end.
Yeah.
You are gonna burn the community to the ground, and we're gonna have heart attacks in the driveway, and fire's never gonna show up, we're not gonna get an ambulance. My God, because I've lived here for 75 years. Yeah, and 75 years ago, you probably maybe did that thought. For, and I'm in the community car, right? Change is hard, and we understood that going into this, and I went into an open mind going, well, we'll see how it works out. And we have our hiccups, and I talked to the supervisor at Jeffcom, and we worked with hiccups. Sometimes it's on our end. There are some things that we do as an agency that cause them grief that we've had to fix, like, yeah, we do that, we'll stop it. You're right, we understand it causes problems in your system, we'll fix it. So it's a give and take, but the numbers show it, and we've got a quality dispatch with normal hiccups. We're okay with that.
and now that the initial costs were paid, it's actually more economical.
I think everybody's saving money across the board, every agency is paying less. And I don't think anybody's experienced this drastic off a cliff drop in service that was predicted on Facebook.
Yeah, we're saving 6 figures.
Yeah, I think Georgetown is too, and
So I think we can say that, I think this is. a
but
public
it's nice to
citizen.
have this kind of data backing up that too, besides the savings.
And I think our PD data backs the same stuff, it's very similar to what we got, so.
Very good.
We did, what, 30, George, overlapping?
Yeah.
We did
38.
554 times last year, we had overlapping calls, 1 or 2 or more calls happening at the same time, 38%, that's been about our average. 30, 30?
30.85.
I'm saying that just because I'm closer to the screen.
I know.
If you're listening.
So it's still in that range, which isn't bad, but, and we gave mutual aid, more than we received it, right? We gave it 6, we received it 3. That wasn't the case before. Those numbers were flipped for a lot of years. We didn't have the staff, we didn't have the people, we were heavily reliant on mutual aid. So it might be 10 times we received aid and we gave aid 0. At the lowest point for us. So those numbers are flipping, that's good. And we want them to kind of balance out. We help them, they help us. The numbers are going in the correct direction. And the stuff on top is just total calls and breakdown of. We have to track carbon monoxide incidents because it's a national standard that we track it, so it comes up in my data. And it's pretty low occurrence overall. All right, next slide. This is more for you to peruse if you want to see, this is after utilization. So 1,796 calls last year, right? So first that apparatus for future thing is brush 2, engine 1, engine 11. They responded to 1,414 of the 1,796 calls last year for service, which is 79% of the time. So 79% of the time that call was handled in some capacity by the first out crew. So the crews out of the station, Dumont, Idaho Springs, or Georgetown handled that call. The other 21% or 382 responses were handled by a secondary apparatus. That could be a volunteer in an engine in St. Mary's. That could be a captain. That could be myself. That could be the chief. So that number is also switched because that number used to be the opposite, where collectively we were running in the upper 50% range of the call row. Captain above. So we've reduced the number of calls we run because the staff can do it. They run the calls and we have time to continue doing all the stuff we're trying to get done that we used to have to drop to go do the calls. So that number is switching, which is good. I don't want to ran 40 something last year, which is awesome. Under 100 is awesome. Being under 50, even better in the project. But this is just for you guys to approve, and it kind of, and we use this to show you, look at utilization of our apparatus. And this is also how some of the decision making on how we move trucks around within the system. Is how much use did they have last year? We can kind of pull that out of it. And then I can also pull individual utilization of the apparatus and go, how much time on scene do they have? So we can really get an idea of if it's time to rotate that, which station we need rotated. We can balance that out. All right, next one. Get back to the informational stuff. Okay, community partnership is kind of a big deal with your coach. If you go to our station, you'll see this really cool kiosk, designed by, one of the residents. I'm pretty sure you could probably park an F-150 on top of it and it wouldn't move. It's over-engineered, that's what he did his whole career, and him and his son are engineers, and they built this. This one's installed, and it's a community effort, it's all of your calls, we paid for half of it through a, we sold an apparatus for way more than we probably ever should have. And part of that money we invested in this because this allows us to put information out in the community. And we give a little bit of labor and a little bit of money towards materials. The second one's gonna go in hopefully this year if we get approval, but this is the same community that historically they didn't always like each other.
Yeah.
They didn't hang out with each other. We're 3 years into mitigation and this is their mitigation committee. This is all, they meet on a regular basis. They help each other chip their properties. It's been pretty remarkable to see what this community's been able to do towards this effort, and this kiosk was just kind of a highlight of last year. So.
And you guys are going up there, not this weekend, but next week then?
Be up there on the 31st, yeah. We're trying to do a community level engineer program where we have members in the community that can take the apparatus to scene. Everyone's done it forever. We've got like 8 people lined up in York Gulch that can do that for us. So we're working towards that. Along with the type of mitigation and all the stuff we talked about. We've had a chipper up there for 2 years in that community going house to house. If you drive through it, if you haven't been up there in years, drive through it. It's amazing how much work they've done. In a high risk community. All right, next one. This one, you get that. Same thing, we did cleanup day last year, we did cleanup day in a limited capacity this year because we had the refresher. We continue to do slash collection in St. Mary's, we gotta go burn piles here in the next week or so because we had too much snow, we couldn't even burn. We're trying to give people an area to collect slash. Hopefully Empire builds a nice pile in their appropriate area so we can do the same thing up there. We've got to chip some stuff in Georgetown. And we're building a pile on Pine Slope for that community, that neighborhood right now that will chip hopefully twice this year. We gave a location, they build a pile, we go through chip it. We did that in York Gulch, we did it in winter last year. To help Evergreen, we paired up with them on a project because they helped us with the fire. They gave us overtime crews on a weekend. I gave them a MIT crew for 4 days. We'll just call it even and we help each other and work. So we chipped Snyder Mountain, which lined up with a Winter Gulch mitigation project. We wanted to complete the box. So we're gonna continue to try to grow that as we can. The reason being, if we don't give people an easy way to get rid of slash, they put it everywhere. And we're trying to limit that, and we're finding couches and stuff everywhere with slash. So we're trying to keep it in the neighborhood and the St. Mary's piles work. Well, in St. Mary's, for example, there's no ponderosa above 8,500 feet for those that get into tree fund. We have a lot of ponderosa in our piles up in St. Mary's. Oh, that's okay, because that shows that people outside of the community took the effort to drive it uphill and actually put it in the appropriate pile so we can take care of it versus dumping on the side of the road. That's progress.
Yeah.
We're okay with that. But it was fun to see ponderosa up here. There's no ponderosa up here. We're way too high for that. But apparently the program worked. We had huge piles again this year. This is the 3rd year of that. It's working. So.
Brian, do you know if we're doing that at the transfer station? For people to bring slash piles?
I do not know the.
I know.
From George's face, I'd say no.
We have the chipper, but we're not.
Well, that's hard to say.
I think it was 3 and I think it was 50%, and I'm not sure it's either of those programs exist anymore.
Right. So we're trying to support that and keep it in the neighborhood.
Actually, you guys Are you guys using one of the chippers that was sitting up there for a while?
That chipper has been, yeah, that's the one that's been in your goals for 2 years and other than some maintenance and some little stuff, that thing has probably chipped more in the last 2 years than it had in its entire existence. Part of it.
We were letting community members just kind of take it. Not kind of take it, borrow it.
In fact, we're gonna go chip the mountain bike park at the hub tomorrow and Saturday. We've got trees we have to chip there before it opens, so. And that's narrow enough, we can drag it on that
All right.
60-inch wide road, so. Yeah, we'll use it up there, then go back, it'll go back to York Gulch and probably York Gulch and Pisco Lake, which is technically Gilpin County. But it doesn't really matter whose county the fire starts in, if it burns in. That's it, so
Discriminate.
we partnered with that entire homeowner association, Timberland Fire, to make sure we can get some projects on the ground up there. And affect change, and it's been great. Or overwhelming, depending on if I answer my phone or not, because it's gotta create our own little monster, it's our fault. All right, next slide. And that's a chipper that was paid for by Westminster. But this is the overview of the chipping program and where it's at currently. Probably the best thing we ever did to get mitigation work on the ground without having a bunch of labor involved. And I was told to go buy a chipper because Kelly had money to spend before the end of the year, therefore I need to go find a chipper like tomorrow. So I did.
So how big diameter can you? put
These
in?
are 6-inch diameter and we have a large chipper that was paid for by a state forestry grant. That'll do up to 12 inches, but we don't loan that out.
Man,
That's one that
That's
Paul
a
will
man
use
eater.
this year again for,
Literally.
the cemetery cleanup. Paul will grab the chipper and use it to chip all the piles from the cemetery this year. So,
Well, this is like a win-win, I think, too, because like for me, that's what I've been working on, and we have a chipper ourselves, but it's for smaller.
Yeah.
Stuff, so the bigger stuff, we just stack up and we'll burn out at camping or whatever, and the other stuff, and then we can take that and put that around the flower beds and.
so you're saying that you could use this at your house sometime this summer to chip the
Mhm.
larger stuff for cover?
I mean, yeah, I didn't know that was available,
That's
so,
that easy, yeah.
yeah,
Lavados
Just
used it
drive
last
across the
year,
road.
okay, I did see them use them, yeah.
the same chipper, so. The whole point is we decided that we need to make it easier for people to mitigate, whatever that looks like.
Mhm.
And this is just one of the mechanisms we're trying to use to make it easier to, and so we've created a monster. A
I
good
don't want
monster.
to do it now,
Right,
right?
no, it's great.
Yeah.
And we dropped some hazard trees, and a bunch of stuff in New York Gulch and different places. And part of this program, all the firewood that we get off this program goes to homes.
Yeah, well, I have a neighbor that has benefited from it.
Yeah, so everything we do becomes firewood, it gets split, it gets delivered. We didn't run out of wood until about first part of March this year. But all the firewood goes back in the community. We've got a ton of need. And we have to show utilization anyways for any grants, and that's a great way to do it. We utilize it, here it is. We've also taken probably 200 cords off of evergreen projects that all hit the community in the last couple of years. So we help them in the same way. Yeah, we have a use of wood.
Yep.
We'll take it, we'll get it off.
You
We
came
live
to
in
my
her
house
and robbed-
twice, yep.
Robbed her appropriately, nothing to see here, we take stuff out of the yard. So we have the need for it, and that program continues to grow through Tracy Troya and some others that with outreach, as they find families that can need it, they contact Dan Noel, he puts them on the list. We figure out what they need, and then we'll happily go deliver and stack wood, because it's not that big a deal for us to spend 30 minutes doing that if it changes their life in a positive
And it
way.
reduced the fuel load on my property.
Yeah, all of it, right? It's take it from here, put it there, it gets used, it's been great, so.
Yeah, it's gonna burn either way, so.
And we're burning piles again, I just seen those, so they burn piles again this year.
You'd rather have a choice
Yeah.
where it burns, okay?
All right, next slide. We talked about training, this is example, so we did a regional fire instructor 1 course, Evergreen hosted it with the facility. We provided the instructors for that course, we had our people in it also, we needed 4 to get through this. This is the second time we've done it, and we have people from all over the state. These classes are hard for departments to get, and they're willing to travel to get this 4-day class. So we did that, we were to say we're gonna do a live fire instructor class over in, Conifer Fire this year. And we did, last year we went to, Fort Carson for the second year and did a regional class down there. We teach that class for the state, but we donate time and it costs me hotel and fuel on my truck, big deal. I got weekends occasionally I can do that, so it's, Don Google teaches for the two instructors from the state. The next one was, we had that call I talked about in January. We did 2 rope classes with Central City Fire. And working with Alpine, we were on Berthoud in 23. We went, hey, let's move it to the Parkway this year and let's include Central City in our training with Alpine, our combined training. And get them integrated. We've never done that. It was successful. Flight for Life was involved. Flight for Life comes in with a helicopter. We go through all the procedures of flying a patient. And we do this every year. So this is our summer training. We incorporated Central this year and they did great because they have a high risk area with the Parkway. And we'd like them to be a little better prepared and comfortable with that event if it happens again. It makes it easier for us, it's easier for everybody, so. It was a large training and it was fun and very successful. And this is the 3rd or 4th year we've done winter and summer trainings with Alpine. Every year, we just change locations depending on what we're doing. Because we need them also. They provide our shore support for extended swiftwater calls. And so we help them, they help us, and that relationship has been a kind of a game changer for us. A lot of it is keeping crews available. I spend a lot of time on these calls and the crews stay available. Without the relationship, we wouldn't be able to do that. So that helps us out with keeping availability crews that are ready to go. All right, next slide. We can close. Red Rocks. We're coming. We just finished Academy of Red Rocks. We originally got $100,000 per academy. I had to renegotiate that after we got a couple of years in. They had a change of management. And they started really looking at costs, and we had a pretty good idea of what our costs were at that point. So we renegotiated to a lower cost. We still come out ahead as an agency. It covers our costs, covers maintenance of our building. And it's $73,000 a session for this last session, and then I think the fall session is going to be $2,200 a day for 16 days. They're just going to rent the facility. They're moving towards being self-sufficient. That was the goal when we started with this. They wanted to have the academy self-sufficient in-house. So they're assuming the instructors. The next academy, they're going to be Red Rocks employees, which is awesome because I know how much he loves doing Red Rocks payroll. So we're going to lease the facility to the academy. Most of the instructors are still our individuals, but we're not paying overtime for them to teach, because if they teach for our academy, they're already employees that pay overtime. Well, now that doesn't affect us, so that reduces our costs there. They still get paid the flat rate from Red Rocks, and they get the experience of teaching. It's because it's kind of a win-win. So I anticipate at least 1, if not 2 more academies will be on a lease purchase, kind of we lease a facility. Their goal is to move toward that. When Cindy gets her new facility completely built, it makes sense. And I've been part of those conversations with her. I know where she's going. She came from Aurora over to Arvada, and she's developing a training facility for that area. So I support where she's going. I know it makes sense what she's trying to do. So we'll probably get 2 more academies out of it. We'll still have the same interface with the students, whether in our facility or not, because we're still teaching in the academy. So we don't lose the interface with the students because we're still teaching.
And you still have the pipeline.
Yeah, we still have the pipeline. So we're still involved in it. We're still on the advisory committee. All of that stuff still occurs. It might just change location sometime in next year, which I've taught there too. I got accredited down there, so it's not that big a deal either way. Still the same community. It's a really small group, and all the instructors are all kind of shared.
Do you ever work with Colorado Mountain College?
We have a little bit, and then the one thing that's good, if Red Rocks does go away, for a training facility for us, we are partnering with CDOT to look at how we start training their crews, the tunnel fire crews.
Oh,
That's, I need to be happy with
Yes.
that. So that's a really big deal
I
to
like
us, that we can work with them and provide that training, and we've also got. I agreed with Henderson that we would do their fire brigade training. I'm not sure how that looks yet, but we'll work to do that too, so. We've got some other opportunity to use this facility in a positive way on top of the fact that we train it constantly with EMS, us and regional trainings. A little less use actually would save us some money as an agency, because we put $14,000 into fire resistant panels.
Mhm.
Last year. Red Rock's covered the cost, for that and the pump was great. But if we reduce the use of the facility, it actually saves us money in maintenance. So there's a give there too.
mhm.
All right, next one. This is kind of, those that don't know, like, where's the snowcat? The snowcat's in our facility. John Kyler did a great job with the sheriff's office. He was the snowcat operator. He lived in Golden. So if you can't get up the highway, guess what you can't use?
Right.
So we met with the Alpine leadership and the sheriff's office leadership, and we figured out that if we jockey a few things around, we can get better utilization of the asset for the residents, especially when the highway is closed, which is actually paid off. It's in our facility. We've added operators, so we've got operators, and we have the ability. The sheriff's office had a single truck that can tow it. So when your single truck that can tow it, once Albert's left, he was his house part of that. Once it was John Kyler's house, now it's in Golden. That's how you move the snowcat. You have to truck it. So we can tow it. In fact, we've done all the towing on it. We used it during the blizzard of that year. We opened driveways and roads to get people out of their homes. We used it, and then the sheriff's office used it on day 2 for some stuff on the east end of the county. So we're showing more utilization for it. We took the Bob with Iowa Springs, we took him to reservoir several times this year, so you can inspect the reservoir, right? And it's good because these strips allow me to train operators, and we improve availability. Because those of us that were here in the 2003 blizzard, if it wasn't for snowcats, there were critical patients that wouldn't have made it to a hospital because of snowcat accidents. So we've been working very hard to make sure we have qualified operators, and it's always available. And that's to improve its availability, because we went to Miners Candle and took a patient off Miners Candle this year due to exposure that he has feet still, because we were able to do that. That's important.
Yeah.
So it was the right thing. We felt it was the right thing to do. And it's cheaper for us to have it because I don't have to take it to Loveland to do maintenance, because I can just do it myself. It takes me 30 minutes to do pressure checks that the county was paying Loveland to do over a day long. Hey, you check all the pressures. Like, it takes me 30 minutes to set pressures on this cat. Daniel Bacon's the captain, also can work, he's a piston buoy tech, he can work on it. So we've also reduced the maintenance cost, because we're not paying somebody, hey, what's wrong with it? Most of it's a 15-minute fix or a simple maintenance, keep the maintenance up. So we want to improve availability, we want to lower our overall operating costs, and utilization that way. So it's been good. We survived this whole winter, and well utilized, and it made a difference in every patient that it transported. So all right, hopefully the last slide. Lose track here. It's almost last slide. So food addition. So we did break UTV. Actually, it's up Silver City Road. We what we thought was a catastrophic front end failure. Come to find out, with the Polaris technicians, like, oh no, we've seen this 100 times. We can rebuild that. We can replace that front frame. We waited a couple months to get it back. So we bought a 6x6 to replace it. We missed one use in the time that between, we broke it, I asked the board for permission to buy one. I picked it up, we missed one patient with it, and we went into service immediately and we used it. So what we did is, this is the one we use for the bulk of the community. It's a little tougher, it's also a little bigger. And then we got the older 6x6 back from repair, and it did an amazing job. I don't wanna break it again. So that sits in Idaho Springs right now. And that machine is dedicated to the mountain bike park. Because it's narrow enough, it fits on our 16th wide road, carries a patient. It solves that problem. And we're not trailering a machine. The crew's literally walking downstairs, opening the bay door, driving up there, making patient access, driving them out to the ambulance. We're trying to shorten that time on task. So we did that, which should make better utilization, and all these machines are available on wildland fires. We do get reimbursement on fire, so we take it out to Burma Forest Service, they pay us for that. But that's a benefit. The bottom picture is the truck that the mayor was so gracious to talk about. I thought it was a fluke, so we did a couple things. The 2009 engine that was running out of Georgetown has starting to get high hour maintenance issues, so we pulled that. We were able to pull that and park it. Use it for wildland fire only. We were able to go to St. Louis and pick up this engine with 2,700 miles on it, 2017. He did some parades, he did a dumpster fire, and ran a couple medicals. They bought it, and this, I wish I had this part of the budget, because I'd have literally rescue go-karts. Because that's something they don't have.
Yeah.
It's weird. So they bought it, and they were gonna staff it, and then they lost their staffing. The reason they lost their staffing is they went, we need to pay our other staff way more money to keep them, because St. Louis Fire was pulling them. So they shifted money to do that, to keep the staff their main engine. And this truck sat idle. Starting in, they took delivery in June of 18. By January of 19, this truck didn't go anywhere. It just sat there in the bay and they polished it. Yeah, it was spotless. So we went out and picked it up. It took a little bit of work to configure it for what we do. It was a demo truck. It was the first truck ever built by that manufacturer. This was their demo truck. These guys spent a lot of money. This thing has bells and whistles that I wouldn't check the box on. I'm glad it has it, but I didn't pay full price for it. For the $580,000 truck, I could cut a bunch of bells and whistles off and probably made this in the $550 range when we were pricing trucks. So we got it for $280,000 and we drove it back, and it's been in service, very end of January went in service, and it lives in Idaho Springs. And it's been a great truck, but part of that is we took the truck that was in Idaho Springs, which is a 2017, also running end of its service life, but better than 2009 that we had, and we moved that to Georgetown. So we were able to split trucks and kind of blend that out. So the 2017, of course, it's getting into the service life, but it's living in the service life out of that station, and we'll figure out hopefully some creative way to replace that. I'm probably never find this again in my career, but if I do, awesome, it would work the trip. It's kind of a big win.
Yeah.
So, and the reason we run smaller trucks is because it costs us a third of what the big trucks cost to run. They're faster. They're probably safer in reality. And the maintenance cost is a third of what it costs to run a large engine, which is why, for example, Evergreen's currently looking at this exact truck to replace their heavy rescue, because it costs a lot of money at 2 miles per gallon to drive that truck anywhere. And they want something like this that they can take to the highway and not like lose your wallet halfway there. So I'm working with their chief on some options. And I send the specs on this truck we were talking about. This the same thing we looked at starting in 09, but we used our costs.
And we got a lot of small roads.
We have a lot of small roads. The reason we have a 75-foot ladder truck in Idaho Springs is because we can make the corner at the top of 13th and Virginia. You can't do that with a water truck. We had a 55-foot before that made it nice. This one will make it, but you gotta do it right. So yeah, the trucks have to match Wall Street, for example. Yeah. So this truck is Same pump capability as a regular larger engine, it's a smaller package. It's slightly smaller package. All right, last slide. All right, now this is the next one. So, we already know it's like Mission CIT did a comprehensive evaluation, and I pulled all this information out of that, and some stuff we were doing, some stuff we hadn't got to yet, and we still have this running list of things we're trying to get to. So we wanna, big things, we wanna find a future funding source, right? And we all agree upon that, that's our goal, let's go for 2025, let's find how we fund this. We wanna continue to increase the number of shifts, the shifts being covered by non-career staff. And that's actually increasing, in a weird way. Budget might be toast there, but look at the numbers, but those are increasing. So we're increasing that level of coverage. We've added a couple things. We actually can staff at 9 now versus 8. Last year we added a chase, which is basically a supervisor truck because they can cover a lot of the smaller medical calls at an even lower cost. One person, cheaper truck, saves some money. While also having some more leadership, because one thing Mission CID said is you should have a captain 24/7. Can't do that yet, but maybe I can have a captain level in that truck that provides an extra level of supervision and can kind of float, drive an ambulance when they need to, shuttle vehicles for us, because that happens a lot. If we need to put the captain, for example, or we used to take a captain, we take somebody and put them in the ambulance. So a 3-person EMS crew, then we'll shuttle their vehicle back to the station when they get back, or we'll provide a driver. So that gives us a little more capability that we're not pulling off of a main truck. We're parking the pickup, they're driving the ambulance down, picking the pickup up when they're back, and they're back in service. So we're looking at a solution, because with whole blood, we don't want to pull the captain, because we need the captain to have whole blood in the county, ready to deliver, because it's Graham County, Gilpin County, and us. So we don't want to pull the captain anymore. So how do we not pull the captain, but still be able to provide the driver or attendant in the back of the ambulance for a critical patient? We thought this was a good solution at a reasonably lower cost, while still meeting some Mission CIP criteria. We're shooting for 70% for the 1710 8-minute compliance. That's our goal for 2025. We're at 60% year to date. So hopefully, I don't think we'll make it, but we gotta set a goal and go for it. We want to develop a community ambassador program. That's kind of a big deal I'm pushing on now. I want people in the neighborhoods to be the ambassadors for wildlife mitigation, for home hardening and all that stuff. Evergreen has a good program. I've worked with Jess trying to figure out the ins and outs and talk to some other people on the work. Hopefully this year we can start rolling that out. We want to focus on home hardening within our historic home districts.
What does that mean?
Just make that 30-foot area around home as armored as you can from wildland fire. Because if you look at the Marshall Fire, that wasn't the wildland fire incident. It really was. It started that way. That was a tough shed on picket fence on house violence problem. That's all that was. That was continuous fuels.
Yeah, house to house.
House to house ignitions. Is that preventable? Yeah, it really is. That 0 to 5 zone from the house, that 5 to 30 is something we can work in. We can do that in the municipal boundaries, because most of us can't go beyond 30 feet from the edge of our house because then we're working in our neighbor's yard.
Right.
So we want to focus on that within our municipal boundaries and continue doing the bigger stuff for people that have the property to do it. There are homes on York also, if you get beyond 75 feet from the house, you're in your neighbor's land or you're in a Forest Service property.
Yeah.
So we want to start an ambassador program within our community and see how we can roll that out.
Evergreen also has assessors that will come to your house, walk around your property and recommend what to do, and it's the 0 to 5, 5 to 20.
We're doing the same assessments.
Okay, great.
That's the community ambassador program, so no, that's
And we could train them.
Well, yeah, it's not just ambassadors.
They
it's
have
actually
both, right?
Fire department staff that comes out and walks your
And we
property.
do those now, so Daniel can do those with me. Daniel Baby, and we'll be able to do those after I get him up to speed on like 12 little things on that program. And then I do a lot of those.
And they're nice. They're like,
They are.
you don't have to cut down all of your trees.
No, it's not. We don't need you to fruit cut your property. We need you to remove 4 trees and change your flower bed.
Yeah.
Right?
Pull out your juniper.
Yeah.
decorating
yeah.
around your
Yeah,
house.
please get rid of your juniper. Get rid of gasoline. So we've been doing that, we've been fighting a lot of, insurance denials. I do a lot of those reports. And we've been reasonably successful. Because there are some third-party contractors, one of which used to work for an organization that doesn't do anybody any favors, but is paid. Gone out and reevaluated some of them and been able to successfully fight to get insurance reinstated for people. Which is part of the, we should be doing, what we wish was. And the last one is, we have a commercial business self-inspection program that we're rolling out this year. I don't see a reason that most businesses can't do a self-inspection with follow-up from us. We have 460 commercial licenses in our county. That's a lot. For example, Genesee has like 160 total commercial in the whole district,
You have how many?
like 460. When you look at everything, and we now do the schools because DFPC wasn't able to do the schools, but they did it because I made a mistake. You got a state number, then they went, hey, gave a notification, hey, you've got a state number in our system now, therefore, guess what, school's yours. We're doing schools now too. We have that from the state because they couldn't keep up. So we've got a large need of how we do business inspections. We think self-inspecting for our business is one part of that program. We tried to roll it out last year, we didn't get this on the goal sheet to roll out this one. That's my entire 18-page spiel. We'll give you a copy of this if you want to go and get the data and ask questions, please do.
Any final comments from anybody?
Yeah, I had to wait to the end to bring this full circle, but I had started off a very heartfelt thank you for all of the hundreds of hours that I know all of us have put in recently, trying to get the fire authority in a better place. And I really want to drive it home with, we redid the IGA and we went over and over the mission CIT report. And I just bring this up because I think it gave every single one of us a new appreciation and really a very in-depth, I should say, knowledge that I know I didn't have about the challenges for the fire authority. I mean, I was expecting that this annual report was going to be pretty harmonious. We were all going to be on the same page, just because we, as a group, really got down into the nitty-gritty, particularly with the CIT report. And I know for me, it was very eye-opening. And I know, just to put her on the spot for a second, like Rebecca had been driving all the way over from Evergreen to Georgetown to make some of these meetings before she was even elected. And, you know, so for me, that just spoke volumes, that there was real interest amongst every one of us. And I can't thank you enough. The annual meeting went as I expected, all very well. And I really appreciate both Kelly and Jeremy's time and spending with us tonight.
Thank
I
you.
want to really thank too, if I can take just a second, I know we're all ready to go home, but you guys have done an incredible job, Jeremy and Kelly, with what you have. And you're making it look way too easy because you're utterly fabulous. It looks like you've just been pulling rabbits out of hats and making things happen. And I am so impressed. I know everybody here is. So thank you for that very, very much. All your diligence, your dedication, your hard work, trying to make everything fit, hitting the make it fit button. It's absolutely incredible.
Well, we've been really fortunate. We've had a board that was literally willing to go, I think you're probably crazy, but we'll support it. Not sure why. So as we bring these ideas forward, we've had really support at that level, and I think that's the biggest change, is being able to, we think we can fix this maybe with this. We have to overspend. We'll come to George's probably tired of hearing it. Hey, it's me again, and I need to spend more money on like widgets. What do you think? But they supported it, and then hopefully we at least have an obligation to go, hey, it's working, or And we bought the wrong widget, we made a mistake, we can fix it, so hopefully it takes all of it to make it work, so. Support from municipal partners, all of that makes a big difference in our ability to do our job.
We really put ourselves out there, taking some risks, building the fire department this community deserves, and that's time to hope that the community is ready to pay for it.
Right. The meal was great, here's the bill.
So my only closing comment is I think this is the first annual. I hope we turn this into a real event, right? I hope the people who weren't here tonight hear how much there was to learn and celebrate here tonight, and maybe we even start to get some public involved. This is a really great opportunity to showcase what we're doing.
And I really think it needs to be stated that all of that is these gentlemen's lives.
Yes.
The majority of everything they do is put into this.
Let's
And I
think
think
about
it's
it,
very
dream about it.
commendable.
They
And I
wake up
am
and-
impressed.
And there's still 3 positions we need to be filled on the board.
Yeah, so the three, additional ESD positions need to be filled, so hopefully you guys are getting applications. I know that's always a challenge, it's that we hope there's 100 people who want to do it, and, well, we got 3. So I know we know the reality of that, but hopefully this year we get those filled, and that's, a positive thing.
Anything else?
A big thank you.
Yeah, huge thank you.
Does this work? We didn't have a format in the PowerPoint years prior, and
Pretty smooth. I
No,
thought.
this works,
all we did
this
is,
definitely
I can
works.
send this to Megan, and she can, I can send her the Adobe file for this, she can do whatever the hell she wants to do with it, she can do everything with it. I just gotta share the Adobe version. There can be options to do with this.
Okay, well, the Board of County Commissioners meeting is adjourned.
Cool.
Thank you, I know, for welcoming us.